What up guys, Zach D again. Today I'm going to try to go over a panel with you. This isn't best case scenario. Currently where I work right now, they have the panels stuffed and they don't get made up till trim time. So yeah, this isn't exactly how I'd like to do it, but I can kind of give you a few technique tips to clean up a dirty situation, you know? I can only get it so clean with how the wires are landed and stripped out. So yeah, bear with me, but maybe you can learn some techniques from just the way I do it, even though it's kind of not the most fortunate scenario to do this, but yeah. So first, I like to have all of the wires stripped out, you know, it makes sense. And then, first part of this I get going on is I like to land the grounds first. I go grounds, neutrals, and then hots into breakers. So as you can see here, whoever stripped these out left a lot of sheathing. You really don't want that. You want them to be, I think the code is a 1/4 inch of sheathing in here. So yeah, that's what I'm working with right now. But we'll make it work. So I like to go in and yeah, a lot of times, I started in Washington State, I worked there for 8 years. Now I'm in California, so there's a few things that differ on how they do things here. But they only put one ground bar in here. I like to have two, so you can just land the grounds on either side of the panel that they're landing in. But first and foremost, I go through and I just loosen each one of these up. Kind of dark here, so I think I actually did this yesterday. But yeah, I'd go through and I'd loosen every one of these up just to make it quicker. So yeah, then I start landing grounds. I like to start with whatever side I'm on. Since seeing as the ground bar's on this side, I like to start with the leftmost wires or grounds. So this one's tucked all the way in the corner. I take my hand, you see how they're kind of mangled looking? I take my hand and I just run it down a few times. It heats the wire up, it makes it malleable, so you can kind of get a better, cleaner look. What I do now is I take it, and again, if the sheathing were cut the appropriate length, this would go a lot smoother. So I take it and I get a little bend. I don't know if you can see it in there, but then as I get the little bend, I sort of just take it and I poke it all the way to the top. What that does for me is it makes it to where you don't have this fat bend here. You have it up in the corner, and also it gets it lined up right nice and neat, and it does give you a little bit of extra length in the future scenario that you might need, I don't know, some more length, you know, panel swap, whatever. So then I start from bottom and I start working my way up to the top, but I'm down here. I'm going to take the bottom part of the ground in my right hand because I'm right-handed, and I'm going to hold this tight to the panel, and I'm going to make a little L shape. And then as I get it there, I'm kind of going to use my thumb to know where I'm going to cut it. Just give it a little cut, and then I'll take it, and wire's malleable, especially after I heat it up by running my hands down it a few times. And you just kind of poke it into these little holes. Working with low light here too, so please bear with me. And I might explain a couple of these, and then I'll probably speed the video up for time's sake. You don't want to go crazy tightening these down. Obviously, anything you tighten, you can strip out if you over tighten it. So I'm using an impact that's probably not advisable. Again, I've been doing this a while, so I got pretty good trigger control, but that doesn't mean anything. I should be using just a regular, like, not low power drill, but nothing crazy. You don't need anything crazy for this panel. It's actually pretty delicate stuff in here, so yeah, just remember that. So again, running my hands down this ground, getting it nice and warm so it'll form better. Poking right here, like, it's kind of hard to see probably, but I'm trying to poke it to where it's at the top, and then I poke it to the back corner, and then once I get that bend on there, I can just kind of very carefully let this go to the top, and then I hold it tight to the back of the panel as I'm running my hand on it, so it doesn't drop back down. I want it to stay up in that corner. Now I'm just going to the second lug, make my cut, kind of fish this in here. And I hold it tight again. Remember, you gotta hold all of this tight, or otherwise, all these little techniques we're doing, it'll just kind of loosen up and it'll just be wavy in there. And you also do kind of gotta keep in mind, we're always trying to put out the best work we can. Taking pride in your work is just something that I really just believe in. I mean, if we're doing this, you might as well do it good looking, you know. A lot of people respect their trade, so they walk in and see rats nests in the panel, they're like, what? But anyways, yeah, so again, just heating this wire up, take it, I'll make this little bend right here, and I'll get it there, use the wire to run it up to the top, hold it tight, and I'll make my bend right here in this third screw, hold it, not let it drop back down, clip, finesse it through this little hole. See how it blows out? I'm going to take it and I'm going to push it back to the back and then make sure it's tight. Once this tightens, it kind of locks it into place. So there shouldn't be too much movement on it. So yeah, from this point, I'm probably going to not talk too much. I'm just going to speed the video up when I edit it because this can get redundant. Maybe I'll stop and I'll say some stuff if you know, when we get to the aluminum wire or something, or 10 wire, there's a couple little tricks that are, because right now I'm just doing 14-2 and 4-2 because that just happens to be what I'm at right now. So they're kind of the same thing, but 10-2 and the 6-gauge aluminum wire, you got to do a little bit more finessing than this 12-2 and the 14-2. So yeah, when I get to one of those, I'll give a little bit more of an in-depth explanation on what I like to do. And again, this is just what I like to do. I'm sure everybody has their own methods, so I'm not knocking any of it. I think it all works for you. As long as you're taking pride and you know you're showing tradesmen like work. Like, I mean, that's really just what you should strive for. I'm not sitting here saying this is the best way to do something. So yeah, just always remember that. All right, so I got this 10-gauge wire here, and I'll show you what I mean if I run into it. Sometimes at the very last part, when you're trying to put it under the screw, it can kind of give you a little resistance because it is thicker wire. So sometimes it can be a little bit more of a pain in the ass to get it screwed. So I'll do like a little clip. Like once I get everything heated up and down there, we'll see if I run into it, and I'll try to explain it if I have to, but yeah, this one's coming from a little bit over, so I'm gonna poke it right there. And then use the wire to push it up into the corner. Okay, hold it flat. And make my bend here. Okay, so this one can be a little bit harder to finesse into the hole like this, so sometimes what I'll do, while holding it tight still, I'll just give it a little bend, and if it's too rigid for you to bend, sometimes just give it a little hook like this. Just a little bit. You don't want it to go too crazy because then it looks kind of wild. But yeah, that helps you snake it around that corner a little bit easier. And then again, I want to hold it tight. I like to hold everything tight to the form that I'm trying to achieve here, because once you tighten that screw down, it like locks it into place how you have it. There's a lot of things I would do differently if I was in a different scenario, but you know, you can move around in the electrical world. That's one of the beauties of our job. You can go anywhere with this trade. You know, you're gonna get recertified and stuff sometimes, but these skills pretty much translate to the places I've been so far. So. When you're doing these panels too, I'd say it's one of the most important things to be clean, you know? Like, I personally think you should try to make everything clean, but, you know, there are deadlines, and as you work your way through the trade, you know, you're gonna be better than you were yesterday, hopefully, if you're trying to, you know, polish your skill set. So you gotta find a happy medium where it actually looks like a tradesperson did it as far as being clean, but not taking, you know, 8 hours on one of these panels, because it just simply, once you know what you're doing, it simply just does not take that long. So if I got like a really big bend like this, sometimes I might take my strippers and poke it into the corner like that. Just, I don't know, it's my style, I like to do it that way. And then I'll run it down to this next screw, just get my cut. I think the thing I don't like most about my current situation here, anytime I've ever like ran the service wire or the SCR, like for a panel or sub panel, I always find some way, however this panel is oriented, like these panels are reversible. So like if you know this is on the top floor and you're gonna run the SCR from the bottom, I would have just hung this panel like quote unquote upside down, because you know it says line upside down here, it says line right side up here. So you can obviously like reverse these panels. It doesn't necessarily matter if you know it's upside down or whatever. But like what they did here is they hung it right side up, which okay, no big deal. But then they ran the SCR from the bottom. And so they have this big long line of the SCR wire running up the side, so that is going to be very inhibiting on trying to get this clean. Also, I keep touching these lugs. You should never get used to that. I don't know why I'm doing it right now, but yeah, if you touch these lugs when it's hot, it's not a good idea. So try to not do what I'm doing and get comfortable touching those, because you should always just be aware that you know this is hot, or this is actually the neutral. So. But these two are the hots, and these are, each one of these legs, I think, has 100 amps of power going to it, and then this whole back area here is hot. So pretty much any of this you want to keep your hands from. Don't get used to touching it. I am being kind of willy-nilly reckless here because, again, I know that this building doesn't have power going to it yet, but it's still a bad thing that I'm doing right now, because I don't ever want to train myself to be okay with touching the back of this panel. I know a lot of people will make you feel like less than, or you know, challenge your toughness if you don't like getting shocked. And you know, you will probably get shocked if you do electrical enough, like that. It's just unavoidable, I would say. But you want to strive to really, really try to put yourself out of the way of getting shocked ever, because you know, there's pretty good evidence that if you get shocked, even if it doesn't affect you in the immediacy, later on in the day, like it could have disrupted your heart or something like that, so that you know, you can just like drop dead at some point. So you always want to be aware of what you're doing and really, 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 really try not to get shocked. I cannot stress that enough. Like again, I've been shocked. It's like, it doesn't seem like a big deal, you know, you get shocked, it upsets you, because it's kind of like when you're playing that game Operation, you know, you're trying not to get shocked, and then you shock, and like, it makes that, you know, everything lights up, and it's just like, oh man, I messed up. Well, this isn't really a game. You should always take this job very seriously, because electricity is a very serious matter, and even if it's just a 15 amp, 120 volt plug, like, that it's, you know, it's not good to get shocked. So just remember that. Like, whoever tries to make you feel bad about not getting shocked, they're flirting with disaster. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So yeah, we got almost all these grounds. And just keep working my way over. Again, I wish that there was a ground bar over here. I could have made this a lot better, but I'm just working with what I'm given here, and I wanted to make a video on the panel because I know it's one of the, to me, it was like a milestone in my electrical career. Every company does it differently, but this was like the final boss outside of just being a journeyman in general, which has got a lot of its own difficulties. So, but yeah, the panel is a big deal, and I know a lot of people pride themselves more than anything on their panel. You'll see guys that do beautiful panels, but then they really don't care how their switch makeup looks. So I find that kind of odd, but I respect it, you know. When the inspector comes to give you a passing electrical inspection sticker. This is the first thing that they look at, and if it looks like whoever did the panel knows what they're doing, they're more likely than not to be like, okay, well, you know, I'm still going to look at everything in this house, but I have a sneaking suspicion because of how nice this panel is that it's all going to be pretty good. So yeah, you should really take pride. And then also, like, this might be one of the only things the homeowner or someone who lives in this like sees, you know, because later on people are adding circuits, you know, they'll hire another electrician to come in and add a hot tub circuit or an EV circuit or whatever it might be, and if that electrician opens up the panel and just starts making comments about whoever did this panel, you know, that's you, that's on you. So even though you won't be around to see it or hear about it, you know, you just know that if you don't take pride in your work, it's not very respected in the trades. Because I always hear this old saying, you know, people say that fast work isn't good and good work isn't done fast. So I don't believe in that. I think with enough repetition and just building good habits and doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's really hard not to get faster at something. And then if you're building good habits to start off with, yeah, you're not gonna be the most efficient with your time or fast, because it takes a long time to get all these skills down. So, you know, if you just keep doing the good habits over and over and over again, you're just bound to get faster at it. And if you're trying to utilize every movement you make and be efficient with everything, then yeah, speed just comes with that. So if you just do this enough times, get enough reps in, get enough practice in, and you're always trying to do it the right way, then eventually you're going to do clean work and you're going to be fast. And then I've seen this more often than not, because electricians are a pretty egotistical bunch. I mean, we get a lot of respect from everybody because people are just scared of electricity. I really honestly think that that's why we get so much respect, because people just don't want to be anywhere near live electricity. So, you know, you'll notice in your journey as an electrician, a lot of the other trades will make comments about how we have the easiest job in the trades, and they just don't respect us because we're not, you know, lifting concrete blocks or giant boards of wood all day. But you know what? I think that they're just upset because we get so much praise generally, just because, again, like, people do not like to be near live electricity. So it's you know, it's this double-edged sword. So this is the aluminum ground. When it comes out of the jacket or the Romex covering, it's kind of loose. So in an effort to make it not like fray out, I'll take it and I'll just kind of, not like that, I just make a loop, but you can't kind of see it, but I'll just take it and make a little bend. You got to make it long enough to where it's going to reach all the way down there, but I'll take this and I'll just kind of hand crank it around so it tightens it up a little bit. Not a ton, just enough to where it stays rigid, because as I go like this with some of this stranded wire, it'll like fray out. And again, I'm going to run my hands down it. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to have my antioxidant joint compound handy, and I'm even just going to go ahead and take the top off of it, because I can't really squirt it into a terminal at this current application. So as soon as I get it warmed up enough, I'm going to take it and do exactly what I did with everything else, but you got to put the antioxidant joint compound on it. So, and this is one of those wires that is at this point in the panel, because I have this stack right here that's forming on the side. It's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to get it in that terminal, so I'll just give it a little turn bend here. I'm just going to take the joint compound. Now, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews, and I haven't looked it up, I should, but I heard that they're going to stop requiring you to do this because Mike Holt says that you don't actually take a brush and brush it in between all the strands. It's essentially useless, but I mean, I'm just going to do what I can do and put it on there because it's required. So Yeah, this is the one that's a little more difficult. You see how I did that bend and it snaked right in there? So, yeah. Ooh. Alright, so we got the grounds done. Now, in Washington State, there's quite a few breakers that I did that I would land the neutrals in the bus bars. This is a sub panel, so you have to float the neutrals, which means we're putting them in these lugs that are on the board. You actually have to add an additional ground bar for your grounds. On a main lug panel to where this is the first means of disconnection and it's not considered a sub panel, you can actually land the grounds and neutrals in here. I personally, in Washington State, I haven't seen that in 5 or 6 years due to code. Everything's a sub panel now, so I'm just telling you that because I've seen that before at the beginning of my career. But yeah, like none of this is the same anymore, so. And I'm in California, so it's a little bit different. So I got my hot water heater here. It is a 10-2, so it's got 2 conductors and a ground. It is a 240 volt application, so I'm actually gonna have to go get some black tape. I'll be right back. What up again, guys? So this is gonna be one of those videos, those rare videos where I actually had to cut it. I try not to. I try to do all of this in one take because I'm not trying to waste my employer's time, but I do want to give valuable insight to the trade. So I ran out of tape. I had to go get black tape. So again, on this 10-2 wire, it's got 2 conductors, but it's 240 volt. One's white and one's black. So white is not a hot color and it's going to be landing into a breaker. So what I have to do is phase it either red or black to make sure that it's identified as a hot conductor, not a neutral. I've heard multiple different theories on this because I've been to a couple different companies, but one of the companies I went for told me that they cited some code I never looked up because I never got called on this by an inspector, but apparently some people say that you cannot use black tape to phase because it's not permanent enough, and that company used Sharpie to color the white conductor black. So yeah, there's multiple ways to do it. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying my way's right, but you know, I've spent the better part of 8 years using tape. What I did is I just kind of got a little piece on there, kind of at an angle, and then I just work my way down like this in a candy cane kind of formation. Sometimes it'll still start folding, so you gotta just make sure it's going flat. And I'll probably run my hand down it again at the end. Just to make sure that it's nice and uniform. This takes a little bit of time. I don't really see it as like an impressive feat, but some of my apprentices have just been like taken aback at this ability. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of you guys can do it. So anyways, yeah. And you know, I typically just do it down to the bottom of the panel. You don't want to waste too much of your tape, and I know I'm going to tuck it into a corner and it's going to land into a breaker. So I go a little bit past the panel. I know specifically this one's going to the bottom of the panel just because this company I work for now has specific orders in which they like their panel to be scheduled. So the breakers have to land in the same spot every time. When I first started, that wasn't a thing. We basically just did it however you saw fit. And yeah. Okay, so I have another one of these circuits. It's a 12-2. It is going up to a fan, a 240 volt fan. So even though it's not 10, because a lot of times, I don't know, in the specific electrical applications I've been in, you don't see 12-2 being used as a 240 circuit, but I guess I shouldn't even say that because you could probably see it in a lot of places. Anything that has a maximum overcurrent protection of 20 amps, you can use 12-2 wire for. You know, I don't know if we've gone over this, but 14 gauge wire is maximum 15 amps, 12 gauge wire is maximum 20 amps, 10 gauge wire is maximum 30 amps, and so on and so forth. It goes like that. So that'll also cue you in on what size breaker you'll be using for most of these wires. But that's not the only thing you have to know as far as what breaker to use for a circuit. There's different things like AFCI protection, dual function protection, which is AFCI and GFCI protection. Different circuits have different requirements. And then there's also standard breakers, which you see a lot less. Basically, I think the only standard breakers I'm doing in this are the 240 volt circuits and the bathroom. The bathroom is a 120 volt circuit. I'm going to be using a standard breaker because at trim time we're going to put a GFCI plug in, and that meets the code requirement. So, and I believe not only is it a cheaper way to do it in a lot of scenarios, but also instead of having to run all the way to your panel to reset a breaker, if you trip it with like whatever bathroom thing you're going to be using, you know, hair straightener or blow dryer, you can just reset it right then and there at the plug, so that's kind of handy. So very important that you label circuits correctly. You know, for a lot of different reasons, troubleshooting, you know, think you turn a breaker off so you can work on something not live, but then you find out very quickly that it was mislabeled and it is not in fact turned off. So yeah, labeling is really important. Also, this is the bathroom circuit. So like I said, I do my grounds first, then I do my neutrals second. I'm gonna take this neutral of this 12-2 circuit, specifically the bathroom, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the grounds. I'm gonna tuck it up into this corner, and then I'm gonna land it in the neutral bus. So I'll just fold it over. Remember, I'm trying to hold everything tight. I'm gonna cut it right here, strip, and you can kind of just finesse it in here. A lot of times these screws are already out enough for the 12-2 wire to sit in them, so you can kind of poke it in without loosening it. Then I'm gonna hold it tight, tighten it down, it's locking the position down. Alright, so that's the grounds and neutrals. I can't remember, we'll see as I go along this panel. I don't think that there's any more neutrals to land. Oh, there's the dryer. I'll land the dryer when I get to it though. But one way to set yourself up for success is to get all the breakers put in. I do these first. These are square D Homeline breakers. Sometimes they're kind of a pain in the ass. Some people don't like the Homeline series. It's mostly what I'm used to, but yeah, they can be kind of finicky sometimes. And yeah, these are the lighting circuits. They're on a 15 amp and they're AFCI protected. I don't need the PDF, which you would say on the dual function, because these lighting circuits are not in like wet locations or anything like that. We do put the exterior outlet on these, which by code requires it to be GFCI and AFCI protected, but the way that most companies remedy that is just by putting a GFCI plug specifically on that. All right, sorry about that. I had to pause and get these breakers put in. I have, again, a very specific panel schedule, so I had to make sure I get all these in the right places. So yeah, I got all these in now. I noticed one more. I like to really get all this wire prep done before I do land anything into a breaker, because if you forget to do something, it generally becomes more difficult when you're, almost done with the panel. You're landing the stuff in the breakers, and then all of a sudden, oh no, I forgot, I gotta phase this neutral. So yeah, I got another 10 wire in here, and it's a 10-2 again, so I have to phase this other conductor black so that everybody knows that it is a hot conductor and not a neutral anymore. So yeah, this specific one goes all the way up to the rooftop for the AC or heat pump. And yeah, there's certain scenarios you can't always tell exactly, how I was saying 10 gauge wire goes on a 30 amp breaker max. Well, specifically this unit needs 25 amp max, but seeing as it's in between the 12 gauge max and the 10 gauge max, this is going to be on a 25 amp breaker. So that's just something to look out for. Okay, I believe, again, except, well, I might as well just do this dryer real quick too. And I apologize for this camera angle here. I'm kind of doing it guerrilla style, so yeah, you might not get the best vantage point here of everything, but hopefully you get the general idea of how you can go about making a panel out through this video. And yeah, if this video is cool, you know, or you like what I'm doing here, go ahead and leave a comment about it. And, you know, obviously if you don't like something I'm doing here, you can tell me that too, because I'm always trying to get better. And I don't like when I do something and another electrician has something negative to say about it. I know there always will be those guys, but yeah, just let me know. Maybe there's something I need to change about my game. So I don't know if you can see it real well, but this is what I was talking about. They ran this service wire up the side, so this isn't gonna be my best work here, but I'm gonna try and do what I can. So I'm gonna do the same thing and get this poked up. I know that the dryer breaker is going all the way here at the bottom. I'm gonna try to land the neutral right next to it because, you know, that makes sense, right? You don't necessarily have to. I've done plenty of panels where I just kind of go down the line and get the breakers close, or the neutrals close to the breakers they're actually associated with, but it doesn't necessarily matter. I guess you're setting up whoever does a panel swap in 20 years for it to be easier maybe. But yeah, just for the sake of the day, we'll put this next to the dryer. Some superintendents like it that way too. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this left side now that I got all of my neutrals and grounds landed that I'm gonna do here. So yeah, we're gonna start with this bottom one because I like everything that's going low to get landed, and then slowly I'll stack up on top of those wires. So we're gonna go with the water heater first. That's the one all the way on the bottom. Heat these up, nice and malleable. They're pretty rigid, so to do this, heat it up. And once you get used to these techniques, you can go quite a bit quicker. I'm trying to slow myself down a little bit just for the sake of this video, I guess, just so it's a little more understandable. Because I know when I was an apprentice and I was learning something new, my journeyman would show me something at full speed, and it would be so hard to catch all the little techniques. And then, of course, you know, they'd be mad that I didn't learn it the first time after they showed me something at 100 miles an hour. So I'm trying to go slow enough that it's evident what I'm doing here. Again, you can get wire strippers that have a 10 slot. I'm using my 12-2 slot and just very lightly scarring the sheathing. Some guys leave the breakers in and just land it in the screws while it's actually on the bus bar. I don't know why, I've always just done this. I get the breaker there, I'll pull it out and I'll put the screws in just because, I don't know, just the way my hands function, this is better for me. And I usually get a better, cleaner result this way. And I'm gonna land this back in there, tuck the wire back a little bit. Sometimes it comes loose, so that's kind of annoying, but okay. Then the next thing we have here is that rooftop AC. I'm gonna land that in this 25 amp breaker. Let's get it out. I might stop talking and speed this part of the video up because it gets repetitive. It's basically the same thing over and over and over again until you're done with the panel at this point. So if, yeah, I stopped talking, that's why. Alright, so like I said, on this side of the panel we got this SCR. So I'm gonna do my best to make this clean, but I've made it exponentially more difficult. Just to give you an idea though, on a Homeline panel, other brands of panels are different. This is a Square D Homeline panel. The AFCI and dual function breakers are represented by test buttons on them. This current circuit I'm on right now is the washing machine. The washing machine is deemed as a wet location because it is hooked up to water and it's literally right next to the plug, so therefore it needs dual function. It needs AFCI and GFCI protection. That's represented by a purple button, whereas just an AFCI breaker for like the lighting or the regular outlet circuits is represented by a white button. So yeah, I'm going to land this washing machine circuit in a dual function breaker. And yeah, these AFCI and dual function breakers, you land the neutral and the hot in them. In Washington State, the code deems it necessary for the dryer circuit to be GFCI protected. So if I were doing a panel there, I would have a GFCI 30 amp 2-pole breaker. Here in California, currently the code is not up to the year that we were in Washington State, so you're still allowed to use a 30 amp 2-pole standard breaker. So I landed the neutral for that one in the bus bar, but yeah, I mean every state is different, so you'll have to make sure you're familiar with your state's requirements for these breakers. But yeah, just to give you a little backstory on why maybe I didn't GFCI protect the dryer, because I know the other states that have adopted that code do that, and it was new to me to not have to do it. 40 amps. So this wire is the oven, and it's on 6-gauge aluminum stranded wire. So it's one of the more difficult ones to make clean. I really try to heat this stuff up, because if I can get it hot, and like when I'm doing this, the wires are literally hot, so you do actually have to be careful, because it'll like burn your skin almost. But I mean, it's all for the cause. So yeah, I'm gonna heat these up. And cool trick too, I think I've shown it in a prior video. Maybe I haven't dealt with the panel in any of the other videos, but I'm gonna take this out. I'm gonna loosen up the lugs first. And I'm gonna take my antioxidant joint compound, and I'm gonna put the cap back on. I'm gonna get these terminals open. I'm gonna just squirt it right in there, instead of putting it on the wire like I did for the ground, because the ground, there is not really a terminal that's going to hold the deox very well, or the no-ox, or whatever your current slang for it is wherever you live. But yeah, I got that in there. So now I'm going to take these, and one by one, some of them I do both conductors at the same time, but I'm going to tuck this up in the corner as best I can. I'm going to hold it back. Again, they've really done a number on me by putting this SCR up the side. And, you know, with time constraints, I can't spend an awful amount of time trying to make it how I'd like it. But this one, I kind of just try to finesse it in here. And I use my plate screwdriver, which probably ain't advisable, but I've made it work. But you do have to make sure these connections are tight. So you probably use a handled screwdriver that doesn't spin. I'm not the strongest guy in the world, but I can get it pretty tight with my spinning screwdriver. But I'm sure someone will have something negative to say about that. But yeah, you know, that's how I do it. also with this circuit, it is a 6-3, so it has a neutral associated with it. This particular appliance needed the neutral. So now that I have the breaker landed and I know kind of where that's going in the panel, I'm going to go ahead and land the neutral right behind it, because again, I don't know that there's necessarily anything saying that you have to land the neutral near the circuit that it's actually part of, but I know this company I work for now likes it that way, so I really try to respect their wishes, you know? Because again, you know, there's all these different ways we can do this stuff, but you really, if you don't own the company, you're kind of, you know, locked into doing what they want. Because even though you could be like a code expert or, you know, like a master electrician, the people in charge, if you don't own the company, they have to answer all the questions from the builders, the inspectors. So really, you know, just do what they say. And if you see them doing something that's like a big violation of code, you can do your due diligence and bring it up to them, and maybe they'll have some kind of crafty explanation that basically like allows them to do it. I can't stress enough that everybody has their own method. As long as you're reading code and you know, you're making your work safe, because that's like of the utmost importance. Like, is this safe? Like, if you do a bad job at like being a plumber and like plumbing a house out in the wrong way, like worst case scenario, which is still bad, like you flood the house out and cause, you know, a family to like maybe have to shell out a bunch of money to fix all the water damage, stuff like that. But if we do a bad job, there's a potential for a fire to start, and that can oftentimes lead to something much more permanent with some water damage. So we do have to really take all of this seriously. So yeah, at the end of the day, if you can't necessarily put out clean work, or like what some people deem as clean, because everybody's got like a subjective opinion on what looks good, at the very least, make sure everything is going to be safe when you walk away and that inspection sticker goes on. Because, you know, I know we all have a love-hate relationship with the inspectors, but I'm kind of happy, because if I am going too fast and I make a mistake that could lead to a problem in the future, I would just be gutted to know that my work led to something bad like that, you know. So yeah, just make sure it's safe. You know, tight connections, make sure everything's tight. Loose connections can lead to very negative outcomes. Now I'm going through a lot of these kitchen circuits here. There's kind of just some discrepancies. So like I landed the microwave just now. I've been taught that the microwave is not in a wet location. Typically it's in a cabinet well above the countertop, so there's not like a ton of possibility for moisture to be there. I could have put it on just an arc vault per code, but I put it on a dual function because, again, the company I work for right now, they like it that way. And this next circuit is the disposal circuit, so that's going to be under the sink. So it's going to be on a dual function AFCI, GFCI breaker, because it needs to be per code. But the kitchen has a couple circuits where you can just use an arc vault 20 because it's not necessary to have the dual protection. So yeah, that's an electrical panel. I mean, there's a lot of discrepancies in how I would have liked to make this video, but again, I'm limited to what I have available in front of me. So hopefully some of these techniques could be of use to any of you who happen to watch this content. You know, speed isn't everything. Cleanliness, overspeed. You know, if you don't own the business, then you have to be efficient. So if you just keep getting these reps in, keep trying to do stuff as good as you can, eventually the speed will come. You will be fast if you do good habits every single time and just continue to develop your skill set. So, you know, just try to be as good as you can. Don't freak out. There's a lot of times in this video where just because of this situation, I made some little bumbling, you know, like the conductors fell out and I had to put them back in. Just don't get mad, you know, just keep pushing. If you fall down, get right the fuck back up and, you know, just keep doing it. You'll get better. Everybody learns at their own pace. It took me a long time to learn how to do this. And I'm not even sitting here saying I'm doing it the best, but I try my best, and that's all any of us can do is try your best, put out good work, at least put out safe work. So yeah, if you like this video, like it, love it, comment, subscribe. If you had some issue with anything I did, let me know. So yeah, this is Zach D again. See you on the next one.